They got one nozzle that's gonna spray on you for 30 seconds and you won't even have time to wash off your ass. Will they let us take our boots off? No, never, answered the dwarf. Hello there, nerd foxes. Welcome to somebody's unlocked humble abode. Again, I am Love Dr. Jordan Breeden. And before you ask, no, this isn't a glass of my own piss. I have no idea whose piss it is. Anyway, you found yourself in an even sexier, even special, even more Valentine's-ier episode of Your Brain on Crack, the show where I invite select strangers into the homes of other select strangers to discuss fictional love lives, and the only show on Cracked stiffer than fermented piss. Man, nothing like a vintage 1996 jankum. Anyway, tonight I will, for legal reasons, merely discuss real romances take a long time to develop. Certainly longer than like 8 minutes in between car chases, so movies don't have time to realistically portray all of those anticlimactic milestones. You know, like the first joint trip to IKEA, or the first time one of you poops at the other's house, or the first time a couple joint poops into a single toilet at IKEA.
I don't mind the Cunin. It's an improvement on the Herdal.
Please. Anything's an improvement over the Herdal. I'd have taken an Emnus or a Treacle over the Herdal.
Those fall by the wayside in favor of dramatic moments that are nothing to build a relationship on, but everything to build a future attempted murder on when the couple realizes they actually hate each other's cute catchphrases. I mean, as soon as the bullets stop flying anyway. Civilization may have been reduced to rubble in the Terminator, but the desperate apocalyptic survivors still cling to the cornerstones of American values. I'm talking guns. I'm talking freedom. I'm talking lusting after each other's mothers and act as American as apple pie, but juicier. In all of these senses, Kyle Reese is one of America's greatest, horniest patriots. He's sent to prevent the extermination of all mankind via liberal application of bullets and banging his commander's mom from behind, or rather, from the past.
I don't want it!
John Connor, the commander of the human resistance, sends Reese back in time to thwart an evil Austrian murder bot who wants to kill Connor's mom and by extension Connor himself. What Reese doesn't know is he also has a secret secondary objective to score with Connor's mom, like he's in an 80s sex comedy. That's why Connor handed Reese an unsolicited photo of Sarah well before the vital mission, as if, you know, it were a casual gift between friends, like, hey, here's a picture of my mom when she was young and like super hot and super horny, bro. I'm just saying.
What's most difficult for me is trying to decide what to tell you and what not to.
This is because Connor's mom recorded an audio message that basically demanded John find a way to ensure Kyle gets his sweet ass back in time for some tender motherfucking. Think of it as 30 years before play.
But I guess I have a while yet before you're old enough.
And all goes according to plan, and Reese falls in love with that photograph, you know, as one does with blurry, filthy Polaroids of people's moms brooding dramatically. In his words,
I came across time for you, Sarah. I love you.
Which is a lot more poetic than your son gave me a photo of you that I masturbated to while in the apocalyptic future, but you're here now. So,
Talk to me some more.
To recap, Reese falls in love with Sarah mostly because he really likes her son and her photo made for good fap, and Sarah falls in love with Reese because her unborn son set them up and she just really likes her future son's taste in dudes. Man, they are lucky that they had a Terminator chasing them and they didn't have time to really consider all this because, believe me, freaking nothing wilts a boner like a time-traveling Oedipal jigsaw puzzle.
Boy, that's a tough one.
While almost everything about the Star Wars prequels is a poorly written, politically charged fever dream, Padme and Anakin's relationship still manages to stand out as particularly awful. Besides the fact that the two have terrible chemistry and that all of their lines amount to little more than, I love you? For real. Yeah, like even more than granular material composed of finely divided rock and mineral particles. The whole narrative basis for their relationship is just flat out bonkers.
You're a slave? I'm a person, and my name is
John C.
Why is Padme even interested in Anakin? When they met, He's only 9 years old. I mean, she herself may have been only 14, but there aren't that many freshmen in high school looking to bang fourth graders. Oh, and she was the queen of an entire damn planet. That adds a few mental years between her and the booger-eating sand slave who almost certainly hasn't had the talk yet beyond boys have lightsabers and girls have Sarlaccs.
Well, if it works.
When they meet again, a whopping 10 years later, Padme's a big city girl trying to have it all. And all in this case means balancing political infighting with repeated assassination attempts. And just because Anakin is now old enough to star in barely legal Padawans Gone Wild doesn't mean she's going to connect with a supposedly sexless chaste priest wizard with a rat tail.
What?
They have absolutely no common ground save for their prior shared adventure when he was an overly precocious child and she was a teenager who looked and behaved like an adult. And that's what they build their love on. The rapport they used to have back when they were separated by an ocean of puberty and acting prowess. And I'm sorry, Jake. I know it's not your fault, but it's true.
I'm a person.
But the real issue here is how the Jedi, and in particular Obi-Wan, do virtually nothing to stop them from hooking up. Is Palpatine using his clouding power to disguise Anakin's constant leering, or how suspiciously pointy his robes become whenever Padme saunters by?
I'm in agony.
After all, Obi-Wan decides that the best course of action is to send the two lovebirds to what amounts to the sexiest part of the sexiest planet in the whole sexy galaxy. Naboo? More like Naboo bees. More like Mons Pubis Calamari. More like Ash Chic, home of the Nookies. More like Hoth sexy horny singles in your area. More like Pound City on Bestman the Ass Giant.
I shouldn't have done that.
And somebody really should have checked Padme's bags to see how many leather dominatrix outfits she packed, because it was at least one.
It'll take us to a place we cannot go.
If you really can't find literally any other Jedi in the galaxy to guard Padme's svelte body, then at least send the two somewhere decidedly unsexy like Dagobah. No. That planet's like a big hot tub. Yes. Well, at least force them to sleep inside of a fresh tauntaun or something. And anyway, if they're really supposed to hide from would-be assassins, why would they pick the one planet she's literally been the queen of? Everybody there knows who she is. The only conclusion is that for some reason the Jedi were secretly rooting for these two to get together, even though the fire from their groins would burn down the Republic and the entire Jedi Order. The transporter's Frank Martin is an incredibly precise man. He knows exactly how much weight his car can handle to evade cops, how much gas such maneuvers would require, and even apparently the resting heart rate of shipping containers. Lai, by contrast, doesn't seem to be worried about much. Here's her hanging out in the house of a guy who literally just tried to sell her into sex slavery.
I picked them from the garden outside.
Frank and Lai's relationship gets off to a rough start when Frank delivers her in a bag to a criminal. To be fair, he also gives her an Orangina, but double also, he leashes her up like a dog, hunts her down like a serial killer when she escapes, and murders two cops in front of her. But triple also, he crams those corpses into the trunk with her for maybe warmth.
Good girl.
But then the deal inevitably goes south, but only because Frank is betrayed, not because he suddenly grew a conscience. And as he's making his getaway in a stolen car, he doesn't give a single thought to what happened to Lai. I mean, he'd concluded his human trafficking for the day and was heading home for a smoke and a nap, abandoning Lai to her horrific fate. The fact that she was coincidentally hiding in the same car is the only reason these two ever see each other again. Eventually, Frank brings her back to his house and unties her. She asks if she can leave, and he's like, I don't give a shit, but she stays, and the two of them survive a retaliatory attack on Frank's house thanks to a sexy scuba escape. And once back on dry land, Lai immediately strips her clothes off and offers to transport his penis into her shipping container of a vagina. Cold, rational, calculating Frank doesn't bother to question the motives of a woman he had trafficked less than 24 hours prior, and what do you know? Turns out Lai is using sex to trick Frank into helping her.
I don't like it when things get complicated.
You like things simple.
And we're expecting some serious blowback from Frank for that betrayal. I mean, if there's anything we've been taught about his character up to this point, break his rules, you're in trouble. Betray him, you're in a lot of trouble. Betray him and break his rules and have sex with him, you are in no trouble. For her part, Lai does claim that the bedroom part was totally for real good boning time, and I guess that single orgasm was enough to transform Frank from a detached professional into a bleeding heart willing to go on a suicide mission for a near stranger. One of these two is going to smother the other in their sleep and make their escape about 15 minutes after the credits roll, since historically, most human trafficker, sexual manipulator relationships don't tend to last. Oh. And Lie isn't in Transporter 2, so I guess we know who won that sexy smother pillow fight. Sometime in the future timeline of Passengers, Earth has finally grown tired of Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence and blasted them into space with a few other would-be colonists. And since Matt McConaughey has already used up all of his holes for love, his wormholes for love, the trip will take 120 years.
Today I'm the age you were when you left.
30 years into the trip, the ship bumps into an asteroid, causing one of the cryosleep pods to fail. Chris Pratt's.
You feel like you're supposed to be somewhere else. You said it.
And after a year of trying to cope with the shitness of being the only person awake, Pratt contemplates suicide for a moment and then instead decides to stalk frozen chicks.
You are funny.
He creeps on the pod of an unconscious Jennifer Lawrence, and it's not long before he decides to wake her up, effectively sentencing her to death.
No more, you won't hear me bring up her name again. I'll never even mention her name again.
He cleverly hides the fact that he is the reason that she's no longer napping, and she's horrified, but you know, she quickly accepts the situation and makes the most of it by riding Pratt's space boner to their new planet.
Oh. Space cloaca. The one thing I do not need more of.
But then, of course, she does find out, and she's pissed, but she also gets over it because nothing heals a broken heart like an impending spaceship explosion, because that same asteroid that woke them up, it also put a tiny hole in the ship's reactor. And once they realize the ship they're on is going to explode from something besides their passionate lovemaking, they put aside their petty differences and fix the reactor together using the power of Stockholm Syndrome.
Dude, shut up! That is awesome sauce!
Lawrence then forgives Pratt, and they build a beautiful life together. Evidently, a year of being sexually manipulated can be wiped away as long as your manipulator is also willing to sacrifice himself to save his spaceship. Yet another thing nobody bothered to teach me in public school sex ed. What did we talk about?
The cloaca.
The actual movie is lame at best and problematic at worst, but I can fix it. What should have happened is everything stays the same, except Pratt actually dies out there fixing the ship. He succeeds in keeping Lawrence and everybody else alive, but the fire melts his skin off or whatever. Now Lawrence is suddenly faced with the exact same dilemma Pratt faced at the beginning of the movie. She can either remain all alone on this space boat until she dies, or she could wake up some sleeping hot boy and pretend it was an accident.
Get out of there!
She'd fight the urge for a few months, maybe even a few years, but eventually she can't take it anymore, and she finds some dude who looks like he'd make a great dad and screws with his pod until the thing malfunctions. Lawrence rushes back to her pod and lies down. The man's eyes snap open. He sits up. He looks over to see Lawrence has sat up too. "Are we the only ones awake?" he asks, apparently Scottish. "Looks like it," says Lawrence. She smiles slightly. "I'm Jennifer Lawrence from the Hunger Games, by the way." Cue creepy music stab. Roll credits. Cash check for $100 billion.
Done.
Well, we have conversed about how Jason Statham would sell his kidney if asked by a wet woman. Conferred about which Star Wars planet is the most powerful aphrodisiac, and made myself famished for Reese's perfect combination of peanut butter and juicy vagina pie. I guess that's all. Feel free to rummage through the cabinets and, take whatever you want. It's not like it's my drugs. Oh, yeah. Getting some real full-bodied salmon notes in there. More like Camille O-face. More like Alderaan top. More like the Forest Moon of Backdoor. More like It's Raining Mandalore. More like Tap That Assouine. More like The Outer Rim Job. More like Mutual Jack-cooing Off. More like Yavin 4-Way. More like Hosnian Prime. More like Vaginosis. More like Master Crate to Sarah Connor in my apocalyptic cave bunker. More like Cockralia. More like the Red Hot Planet of Lustifar. More like Horus. Can we say that? That's not gonna. I'm gonna cut that.